Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the first of 6 public meetings for the Coastal Texas Study. On behalf of the project team, we thank you for your time and interest in the Coastal Texas Protection and Restoration Feasibility Study, or Coastal Texas Study. My name is Connor Stokes. I will be assisting the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Texas General Land Office with today's public meeting. Before we proceed with our agenda, I would like to acknowledge the project team members in attendance today. From the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we are joined by Colonel Timothy Vail, Commander of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Galveston District, and Kelly Burks-Copes, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Project Manager. And from the Texas General Land Office, we are joined by Mark Havens, Chief Clerk and Deputy Land Commissioner, and Tony Williams, Deputy Director, Coastal Field Operations. During the meeting today, Colonel Timothy Vail and Mark Havens will provide opening remarks, followed by a presentation about the revised draft proposal from the Corps of Engineers and Texas General Land Office. After the presentation, you'll be provided with the opportunity to speak directly to the project team. If you did not sign up to speak when you registered for today's meeting, you may do so at any time during the meeting by using the raise hand feature located at the bottom of the WebEx participant list. Please see the screen for additional instruction about using the raised hand feature through WebEx. For individuals who have only called in through the phone, you have the option to sign up to speak by dialing *3. You may also submit written comments through mail and email. Mailing address information and the project email address can be found online through the project website. Speakers will be called on to provide comments in the order in which they have signed up. We will announce upcoming speakers in groups of 5, so you're aware of when you will be called to speak. We will now begin the presentation portion of the meeting with opening remarks from Colonel Timothy Vail, Commander of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Galveston District, and Mark Havens, Chief Clerk and Deputy Land Commissioner of the Texas General Land Office. Colonel Vail.
Thank you. So good morning to everyone that's participating in the first of what will be 6 formal public comment periods addressing the Army Corps of Engineers and Texas General Land Office Coastal Texas study. Before we get started, I want to set the stage and provide some context on where this Coastal Texas study fits in terms of the broad strategy for coastal resiliency that's been developed and progressing between the Army and the state of Texas. So briefly, after Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Ike, a host of other storms, a broad coalition began to form to create a notion and concepts of the most resilient Texas coast possible. Just as that coalition was forming, we started to see tremendous amount of exponential growth along the Texas coast. And a lot has transpired. Since the initiation of most of those concepts back in 2008. And I want to provide you just a quick update on where the Coastal Texas study that we're discussing today fits within those broad concepts. The first concept that materialized following Hurricane Ike in 2008 was a component of a resilient Texas coast called the Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay. The Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay project included the construction of new hurricane flood protection systems for Orange County, raising the existing hurricane flood protection systems in Port Arthur, Texas, as well as increasing the height of the hurricane flood protection system in Freeport, Texas. I'm pleased to let you know that all those are well underway. They were fully funded in 2018 by the United States Congress in a supplemental bill. And as it stands, we're well into the design for Orange County. We're well into the construction phase of raising the Port Arthur system, and we're into the design phase of raising the Freeport system. So Sabine Pass to Galveston Bay provides a start point of this era of coastal resilience. It is also matched with the completion of a standalone ecosystem restoration report that was completed last year, specifically for Jefferson County, which provides a standalone engineering with nature alternative to providing and enhancing coastal resilience along the coastline around the Orange and Port Arthur area, specifically for Jefferson County. The third component is this study, the Coastal Texas study, which is a $26.2 billion study project that addresses the balance of the Texas coast in 4 separable elements. The first are the series of gates, the interior bay gates for Dickinson and Clear Lake, as well as the gates across the Houston-Galveston ship channel from the existing seawall to Bolivar roads, which are designed to limit the impacts of surge. The second separable element is the ring barrier around Galveston Island. The third would be the dune system to prevent development of those two other separable elements, including 42 miles of dune system up the Bolivar Peninsula to McFadden and down the seawall to San Luis Pass. And then most importantly, about this $26.2 billion project that we're presenting to you today is that the Army and General Land Office plan as presented, above all things, is truly competitive for federal investment moving forward. We have a broad responsibility to optimize the direct economic benefits with the direct costs of the project under the framework of the federal policy known as the National Economic Development. And then one of our governing priorities in this study process is to make sure that our recommendations, our best engineering recommendations, can actually be implemented. And we are working on implementation strategies. As it stands right now, the state legislature is planning to create a non-federal entity to partner with the Army for the next phase of design and construction of the project. Additionally, we've approved a framework to continue the environmental analysis necessary to advance the study. Many more site-specific environmental impact statements beyond this programmatic one that you're receiving today need to be done in the next phase of the process. And then additionally, we're working on a timeline for authorization of the project from the Congress in the year 2022 with preliminary engineering and design and continued supplemental environmental analysis continuing and picking back up in 2023. There's definitely a sense of urgency. We've seen one of the most active tropical seasons in a generation in the last year, and we've had some very close calls. So the sense of urgency is there. Our commitment to the most resilient Texas coast is there. And most importantly, representing the Army, it's imperative that all of y'all understand that we can't do it without the dedication of the state of Texas. And that dedication is represented through the Texas General Land Office, who's been providing critical leadership in getting the study to where it is today, representing your voices, and then championing our implementation strategy. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce the Chief Clerk of General Land Office, Mr. Most.
Thank you, Colonel. I appreciate it. Again, for the record, my name is Mark Havens, Chief Clerk and Deputy Land Commissioner of the General Land Office. As you heard from the Colonel, the Corps is involved in quite a number of just incredible projects going on right now in the state of Texas, and we're proud to be a part of all that. And so, as specific as to today, I just want to thank everyone for coming out to the second public comment period for the Coastal Texas Study. Addressing issues on the Texas coast, including storm surge and ecosystem enhancement, continues to be one of the top priorities for Texas Land Commissioner George P. Bush. Now, I know some of you may be asking, why is the GLO involved in this study at all? The Land Office was originally established to manage state-owned land, including submerged land under tidal influence that stretches out to over 10 miles offshore. We're also the agency that's responsible for the Coastal Management Program, Coastal Erosion Planning and Response Act, CEPRA, that has funded a number of projects along the coast, beach and dune protection, oil spill response in state waters, and we've played an ever-increasing role in disaster recovery over the last several years. In November of 2015, the GLO signed an agreement with the Corps to be the local partner for this Coastal Texas study. And in doing so, we committed to work with the Corps to develop a plan to increase the resiliency of the Texas coast through an integrated approach that includes ecosystem restoration as well as storm surge barriers. Now, again, I said we're here for the second round of comments for this public comment period. And I think our overall message today at the Land Office is we're here today to say we heard you. This study team has been working incredibly hard reevaluating proposed features to address public comments from the first comment period. I know so often with these type of lengthy multi-year projects, the public comment periods are seen as a check the box thing and move on down the road. That is clearly not as what's happening here today. And I think you will be pleased to see when we share our progress with you. There have been numerous changes to this study, and all of those built around the response that we received for the first round of public comments. So we look forward to sharing our progress with you today, and we want you to leave feeling engaged, informed, and heard. Again, thank you for taking the time to attend this public comment period. We're proud of what we're doing. We want to hear from you and just look forward to everything we have going in the future with the Corps.
Thank you, Colonel Vail and Mr. Havens. We will now proceed with the Coastal Texas Study presentation describing the revised draft proposal.
Welcome to the presentation of the Draft Feasibility Report and Draft Environmental Impact Statement for the Coastal Texas Protection and Restoration Feasibility Study, also known as the Coastal Texas Study. This presentation is intended to give you information about the draft proposal identified in the Draft Feasibility Report and Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or the DEIS, prepared by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in collaboration with the Texas General Land Office. Along the Texas coast, vital resources critical to the social, economic, and environmental welfare of the nation are at risk from damage by tropical storms. When tropical disturbances negatively impact the Texas coast, the immediate fallout and the continued aftermath affects not only the people who live in these coastal counties, but also the entire nation. It is critical that we take action now to avoid the destruction that future storms will bring. That's exactly why the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has partnered with the Texas General Land Office to identify and recommend feasible projects to reduce risks to public health and the economy, restore critical ecosystems, and to make the Texas coastline more resilient. The Coastal Texas Study was initiated in 2014 to evaluate large-scale coastal storm risk management and ecosystem restoration actions aimed at providing the coastal communities of Texas with multiple lines of defense from a wide array of coastal hazards. This study falls under the USACE's Civil Works mission, which includes, but is not limited to, inland and coastal flood risk management and restoration, protection, and management of aquatic ecosystems. The study area consists of the entire Texas Gulf Coast, from the mouth of the Sabine River to the mouth of the Rio Grande, and includes the Gulf and tidal waters, barrier islands, estuaries, coastal wetlands, rivers and streams, and adjacent areas that together make up what we refer to as the Texas coast. In November 2015, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers entered into an agreement to officially designate the Texas General Land Office as the non-federal sponsor and begin development of a feasibility study and environmental impact statement. The Coastal Texas Study Team was officially formed, comprising of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Texas General Land Office. The study phase, or the phase in which we determine the best course of action to protect the Texas coast, includes a series of reports that explain the findings of the study and a proposed plan of action. In fall 2018, the study team released the first draft report and the draft environmental impact statement. Based on the input received during the public review and comment period in late 2018 into early 2019, the study team began revising the draft proposal to integrate public comments and feedback. As this second draft proposal was formulated, the study team continued to seek further public input through the establishment of 4 community working groups led by the GLO, as well as a number of targeted stakeholder meetings. In addition, 3 public open houses were held in February 2020 across the Upper Coast to help inform the public. The study team will continue to review and address the input received from the public and resource agencies to produce the final feasibility report and environmental impact statement, which is anticipated to be published in May of 2021. The final report will be signed by the Chief of the Corps of Engineers in June 2021, which will mark the end of the study phase. After the study phase, the recommended plan will be proposed for congressional authorization and funding. If approved and funded by Congress, the recommended plan would then be designed and constructed over a period of 12 to 20 years, depending on congressional authorization, appropriations, and non-federal partnerships. The project would be maintained after construction by a local sponsor or sponsors who have not yet been determined. To comply with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, a federal agency must prepare an environmental impact statement if it is proposing actions that may significantly affect the quality of the natural and human environment. The NEPA environmental review process seeks to facilitate better informed decisions focused on avoiding, minimizing, and/or mitigating potentially negative impacts of federal action. For the Coastal Texas study, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is following a tiered NEPA process. The final EIS will be published with the final feasibility report in 2021, and supplemental NEPA compliance documents will be prepared and published for public review as the project is designed. This means that the public will have additional opportunities to engage with the team, review revised plans, and provide feedback. In accordance with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers planning guidelines and NEPA requirements, a proactive approach was taken to engage the public, resource agencies, industry, local governments, and other interested parties throughout the Coastal Texas study planning process. This included regular and continued coordination over the study period. Starting in 2014, during the reconnaissance phase, a series of scoping meetings were held. And now a series of virtual public meetings are being held to review and finalize the second draft proposal and draft EIS. Engagement activities have proven to be integral to the planning process, as they have generated thousands of comments and suggestions which informed study planners of key concerns and helped to shape and refine the draft proposal. Most significantly, public input received on the first draft integrated feasibility report and EIS in 2018 and consideration of community impacts led to refinements in plan formulation, which resulted in the revised draft proposal presented today. Public comments received in the current review will be evaluated and documented in the final feasibility report and EIS. The public will continue to be informed during the design phase that occurs after the study phase. The impacts to the environment will be assessed as the project is designed. The impacts to the environment will disclose site-specific impacts associated with the proposed solution and identify the avoidance, minimization, and compensatory mitigation efforts to lessen adverse effects. In addition, the updated documents will undergo formal public review periods and resource agency coordination. The Texas coast is vulnerable to tropical storms and hurricanes that can take human lives, flood homes and businesses, and damage coastal ecosystems. The damages from hurricanes and tropical storms could become more severe as wind speed is projected to increase with higher sea levels and rising ocean temperatures. When tropical disturbances negatively impact the Texas coast, they affect not only the people who live in these coastal counties, but the entire nation. The Texas coast is an economic engine, home to ports, oil and gas refineries, corporate headquarters, military bases, fuel supply and refinery complexes, and numerous other enterprises. The shutdown of even a single Texas port can impact state and national economies for a significant period of time. As experienced in 2008, when Hurricane Ike's storm surge and heavy winds significantly impacted Brazoria, Chambers, Galveston, Harris, Jefferson, and Orange counties. The Coastal Texas Study Team recognizes that the natural physical features and processes are interconnected with the man-made features within the coastal Texas region. Population and industry grew in this region specifically because these features supported economic growth. However, erosion and storm surge reduced the protection these barrier systems provide to the coast. Relative sea level change increases the vulnerability of these systems even further. Risk reduction measures designed to sustain natural features and reduce inundation and erosion risks can be achieved at lower cost when implemented before conditions deteriorate further. After the first draft proposal was released in October of 2018 for public comment, policy review, and agency technical review, multiple changes were considered and developed to reduce impacts and costs of the revised plan. Most significantly, the plan no longer includes the originally proposed levee floodwall segments that would have paralleled State Highway 87 on Bolivar Peninsula and FM 3005 on Galveston Island. These segments were dropped from the plan to minimize both social and environmental impacts. Instead, the draft proposal now includes the Bolivar and West Galveston Beach and Dune system, a double dune system designed to provide both storm surge risk reduction and ecosystem restoration benefits. Among other changes at the Bolivar Roads crossing, a second 60-foot deep navigation channel and two 650-foot wide draft surge gates are now proposed instead of a 1,200-foot wide gate. The estimated refinements of the Bolivar Roads gate system have reduced the constriction of flow between the bay and Gulf down from 27.5% to 7 to 10%. This, in turn, has reduced the anticipated environmental impacts to the Galveston Bay's ecosystems and has reduced the amount of mitigation now necessary to offset losses. The Galveston Ring Barrier System has been realigned to reduce impacts to surrounding neighborhoods and incorporate more areas, and reoccurring sediment placement has been removed from the proposed ecosystem restoration features. The second draft report now includes these revisions, as well as a revised draft environmental impact statement, an updated benefit cost analysis, and suggested strategies for implementation. This time, we've developed a broader, more holistic solution that combines man-made solutions with coastal restoration projects that work together to protect the coast. This comprehensive approach is referred to as a multiple lines of defense strategy and can be divided into three categories. The Gulf line of defense to keep storm surge in the Gulf, which includes the Bolivar Road storm surge gate system, which has been designed to prevent approximately 60% of storm surge from entering Galveston Bay, highlighting the need to implement the gate system prior to the remaining proposed features. The Bay line of defense to manage water that is already in the bay and any additional storm surge that overlaps the Gulf line of defense, and ecosystem restoration to enhance coastal resilience into the future. The proposed plan provides increased resiliency along the coast and is adaptable to future conditions, including relative sea level change. As we mentioned, the Gulf defense now includes a gate system across the Bolivar Roads inlet and 43 miles of beach and dune systems on the front of the peninsula and the island, as well as 2.9 miles of beach and dune structure down on South Padre Island. The Bay defense includes a 15-mile ring barrier around the backside of Galveston Island and mainland defenses including gates and stations at Dickinson Bay, Clear Lake, as well as non-structural measures on the west side of Galveston Bay. And the ecosystem restoration proposal includes 8 separate sites totaling over 6,600 acres of habitat restoration coast-wide. The study team hosted an international storm surge gate design workshop with experts from around the world to evaluate the previously proposed gate design and suggested changes to improve safety, assure redundancy, and reduce environmental impacts. The Bolivar Roads gate system represents the most critical feature of the Gulf line of defense and now includes two 650-foot wide floating sector gates, two 125-foot wide floating sector gates, 15 300-foot wide vertical lift gates, 16 shallow water environmental gate complexes that are 16 feet by 16 feet, and tie-in structures comprising of flood walls and levees will join the gate system to the beach and dune system. The deep draft navigation sector gates across Bolivar Road's inlet will be anchored and housed in man-made islands on both sides of the existing and new channels. The gates will be stored in dry docks within the man-made islands, which will help minimize the probability of vessel impacts during day-to-day activities. As a storm approaches and a decision is made to deploy the gates, the dry docks will be flooded, allowing the gates to swing out and float into place. Then water will be pumped into the arms, sinking them into place. Once the storm surge event has passed, the water will be pumped out of the gates and they will be floated back into their dry docks on the artificial islands. The deep draft navigation gate openings will require dredging a second deep draft channel and are designed to be 650 feet wide each, with a sill depth of 60 feet. The sill depth across the ship channel will allow for future deepening of the Houston ship channel, which is currently maintained at a depth of minus 48 feet mean lower low water. The gates will remain open year-round to maintain continuous navigation traffic. The gates will only be closed when a storm surge event threatens the Texas coast or for an annual maintenance check and inspection. Smaller 125-foot sector gates will be located on each side of the larger 650-foot sector gates for other vessels to travel through the storm surge gate system without crossing paths with the deep draft vessels. These sector gate complexes will have a reinforced concrete pile foundation with steel fabricated gates. When the gates are open, they are stored on the islands to protect them. The channel crossing continues with a series of vertical lift gates suspended between concrete towers. The lift gates for the Bolivar Roads crossing have 300-foot wide openings, including 8 lift gates with a 20-foot sill depth and 7 lift gates with a 40-foot sill depth. To the right or north of the vertical lift gates, we propose to build 16 shallow water environmental gates in the area nearest Bolivar Peninsula, where the water is 5 feet deep or less. These gated structures provide multiple openings to allow for tidal passages from both sides of the gates. The gates will require an access road on the bay side of the structure to allow maintenance crews access to the gates and operating equipment. The road will consist of stainless steel industrial grating, which will allow sunlight to pass through the water below, which reduces impact to marine life. To tie the gated structures to the land, a 5,300-foot-long combi wall will join the system to the levee system at the end. Beach and dune construction on West Galveston Island and Bolivar Peninsula form the remainder of the Gulf defenses. On West Galveston Island, this feature would tie into the existing Galveston seawall and continue westerly for 18 miles, ending at San Luis Pass. On Bolivar Peninsula, the beach and dunes tie into the McFadden National Wildlife Refuge Beach Ridge Restoration Project, which starts approximately 2 miles east of Highway 87 and continues southwest for 25 miles to the end of Biscayne Beach Road, where it links into the gates levee feature. Although the improved beach and dune designs provide a lower level of risk reduction than the previously proposed levee system, they take advantage of the natural resiliency of sand systems, sustain the barrier island over time, and strengthen the tie-in to the Bolivar Roads gate system. These changes have been made in response to public comments and represent a solution which minimizes environmental and social impacts while still achieving significant coastal risk reduction. The proposed beach and dune features include a 14-foot landward dune and a 12-foot gulfward dune with a 250-foot wide beach system on the water side. It is important to note that this dune field construction will begin at the current dune line and build out toward the water rather than building toward people's residences. The draft proposal will require approximately 22 million cubic yards of sand for initial beach and dune construction along Bolivar Peninsula, and approximately 17 million cubic yards of sand for initial beach and dune construction along West Galveston, and approximately 22 million cubic yards of material will be needed for periodic nourishment along Bolivar Peninsula and West Galveston, every 6 years for Bolivar and every 7 years for West Galveston over a 50-year period of analysis, considering the intermediate relative sea level change condition. Currently, there are 125 authorized beach access points, 67 vehicle crossings, and 58 pedestrian crossings within the proposed beach and dune systems. Existing authorized pedestrian beach access crossings will be replaced with dune walkovers to minimize impacts from the newly created dune systems. Pedestrian traffic volume will be investigated to determine an appropriate walkover width for the location, and all up and down ramps for the crossovers would be designed to be ADA compliant. Existing authorized pedestrian beach access crossings will be replaced with dune walkovers to minimize impacts from the newly created dune systems. Vehicular ramps will be created to minimize ramp length. The number of access points will be in compliance with the Texas Open Beaches Act. On the lower Texas coast, the South Padre Island Coastal Storm Risk Management Measure would nourish the beach and dune along South Padre Island to reduce risks from coastal storm surge to businesses, residents, and infrastructure in the highly developed area of South Padre Island. Beach nourishment will also maintain beach habitat for nesting sea turtles and birds. The plan proposes beach nourishment on a 10-year cycle for the authorized project life of 50 years. The economic analysis confirms that beach nourishment is cost-effective when considering construction costs, benefits, and currently estimated real estate costs. The Galveston Seawall Improvements feature is a future adaptation to provide additional storm surge and wave overtopping reduction along the existing seawall, which will connect to the Bolivar Road's gate system on the east and the West Galveston Beach and Dune system on the west. The recommendation is to increase the height of nearly 8 miles of existing seawall to reach a uniform level of protection of 21 feet by adding curbing and drop-in gates, where needed, on the landward side of Seawall Boulevard to address the risks of overtopping. The Galveston Bay is a large enough body of water that flooding can result from wind and fetch pushing water up onto Galveston Island from the backside. The Galveston Ring Barrier offers the first component of the bay defenses to address this risk. The system ties into the existing seawall and proceeds clockwise from the west end of the seawall north in the proximity of 103rd Street to Offit's Bayou, crosses the Teichman Point area, and ties into Interstate Highway 45, continues east along the Harborside area to the 47th Street area, then continues north to the Galveston Ship Channel, then continues east through the Port of Galveston to the University of Texas Medical Branch, turns northward to the ferry, and then back south to the seawall. Numerous trade-offs between project cost, project impacts, and overall effectiveness of the ring barrier system were evaluated and made during the refinement of the alignment. The ring's floodwalls and gates have been set at an elevation of 14 feet, which considers the water level of the bay and wave overtopping, assuming that the Bolivar Road's gate system has been constructed in advance of a storm. Since Galveston Island currently operates on a gravity drainage system, the plan would add a forced drainage system consisting of approximately 6 new pump stations to move water off the island. The pump stations would address storm surge flooding as well as rainfall flooding during storm events. Further, any features proposed by the study are not permitted to worsen any existing conditions, meaning the risk of flooding from a rain event cannot be increased with the implementation of the ring barrier system. Although the Bolivar Road's gate system reduces the storm surge water of the Gulf from entering Galveston Bay, residual risk exists due to the storms pushing the Galveston Bay waters onto the mainland. The Clear Lake and Dickinson Bay systems are proposed as a second line of defense to address this concern. The Clear Lake and Dickinson Bay gate systems each consist of a storm surge gate structure, associated flood walls, and a pump station to address the residual risk that persists in the Clear Lake and Dickinson Bayou areas. For Clear Lake, a closure is proposed at State Highway 146 in Clear Lake to address Galveston Bay surge. The design includes a 75-foot sector gate and a pump station with a design capacity of 20,000 cubic feet per second. The flood wall enclosure structure would start on the west side of State Highway 146 near NASA Road 1 and end on the south side of the outlet near Marina Bay Drive west of State Highway 146. For Dickinson Bay, a closure is proposed at State Highway 146 and Dickinson Bayou to address Galveston Bay surge. The design includes a 100-foot sector gate with a design capacity of 19,500 cubic feet per second. The flood wall and closure structure would start on the west side of State Highway 146 near Avenue T and end on the south side of the bayou near Waterman's Harbor west of State Highway 146. These features would include drainage outlet structures, also called circulation gates, to allow hydraulic connectivity to be maintained except during closure for hurricane or tropical storm surge events. Non-structural measures are proposed for the west side of Galveston Bay, north of the Texas City Hurricane Protection Levees. Non-structural measures include raising houses and/or floodproofing. The study team reviewed residential and non-residential structures within the Galveston Bay system that are predicted to sustain significant damage during a variety of storm surge flood events under the future with project condition with the surge barrier in place. Based on an evaluation of cost and benefits and the ability to continue to buy down risk, structures still receiving damages in the 100-year storm surge event were recommended for voluntary non-structural raisings. About 1,750 residential pier and slab-on-grade homes are being recommended to be raised to the future with Project 100-year stage plus 1 foot, and 170 non-residential slab foundation buildings are recommended to be floodproofed to 3 feet above the existing ground elevation. If local floodplain standards are higher than these recommended elevations, the local standard should be followed. The Coast-Wide Ecosystem Restoration Plan was formulated to restore degraded ecosystems that buffer communities and industry on the Texas coast from erosion, sinking land, and storm losses. Ecosystem restoration projects address habitat loss and degradation from coastal processes and support the coastal storm risk management components by providing a natural buffer from coastal storms. Each ecosystem restoration measure represents a combination of features and is formulated in a specific geographic location to restore diverse habitats and provide multiple lines of defense. A total of 8 ecosystem restoration measures are proposed along the entire Texas coast that collectively provide approximately 6,610 acres of ecosystem restoration. Ecosystem restoration measures included in the draft proposal include 114 miles of breakwaters, 15.2 miles of bird rookery islands, 2,052 acres of marsh, 12.3 miles of oyster reef, and 19.5 miles of beach and dune. Here, you can see the proposed measures for Galveston Gulf Intercoastal Waterway shoreline and island protection. Here, you can see the proposed measures for Bolivar Peninsula and West Bay Gulf Intercoastal Waterway shoreline protection and island restoration. You can also see proposed measures for Follett's Island, Gulf Beach, and Dune restoration. Here, you can see the proposed measures for East Matagorda Bay shoreline protection and Keller Bay restoration. Oyster reefs, revetment, and breakwaters will reduce erosion along the shorelines, and sediment will be used to restore marshes, wetlands, and islands. Here, you can see the proposed measures for Powderhorn shoreline protection and wetland restoration, and Redfish Bay protection and enhancement. Again, offshore breakwaters and oyster reefs will reduce erosion of the shorelines, and sediment will be used to restore marshes, wetlands, and islands. Finally, here are the proposed measures for Port Mansfield Channel, island rookery, and hydrologic restoration of the Laguna Madre. Sediment will be dredged from the channel and placed on the beach in Mansfield Island, a bird rookery island. The opened channel will restore the connection between the Gulf and the lagoon. While the team was able to minimize and avoid many potential impacts by optimizing the proposed lands, an estimated 1,577.6 acres of direct and indirect impacts to wetlands, bay bottom, and oyster reefs are still anticipated under the draft proposal. The impacts are divided into two categories, direct and indirect. Direct impacts are caused by the footprint of coastal storm risk management feature construction, and indirect impacts are caused by construction-induced changes to the environment that are not within the direct footprint. A draft mitigation plan has been developed to address the potential lost functions and values of the impacted areas through the creation or restoration of habitats in the area. Over 677 acres of habitat will be created, and an additional 674.4 acres of existing low-quality habitat will be enhanced to offset potential direct and indirect impacts to wetland and oyster reefs under the draft proposal. Potential locations for mitigation sites have been developed by the study team, but will be refined further during the pre-construction engineering and design phase. Ultimately, the final size of the mitigation measures may change. However, due to the conservative nature of engineering and economic assumptions used in the development of the draft proposal, it is anticipated that design refinements of the proposed structures will result in equal or lesser environmental impacts than currently estimated. For the overall combined project, the project construction cost is estimated at $26.2 billion, with 67% of the cost allocated for Gulf defenses, 23% for bay defenses, and 10% for ecosystem restoration. As you may notice, the total economic recovery costs from previous storms indicate that the proposed project could very well pay for itself in just one storm. With the draft proposal in place, not all storm damages will be prevented, only reduced. It is important to understand that the project will not eliminate all risks to life and property. Even with primary line of Gulf defenses and secondary line bay defenses, residual damages can still occur from project exceedance events, rainfall events, and hurricane winds and wind-blown debris. Implementing the coast-wide ecosystem restoration plan would result in positive effects on natural resources which are institutionally, technically, and publicly recognized. Restoration supports the global, national, state, and locally significant resources within the area and the unique services, functions, and values provided by these resources. Fresh, intermediate, brackish, and saline marshes will be protected or enhanced within a framework of marsh restoration, shoreline protection stabilization, and dune beach features that interact to provide benefits greater than their costs. Together, these features would help protect against erosion and provide important transitional estuarine habitat between upland and marine environments, restoring lost wetlands, protecting existing wetlands, and reducing the profound environmental and habitat loss across the study area could also help support the coastal storm risk management portions of the recommendations. Part of the area's vulnerability to hurricane storm surge damages is directly related to the significant loss of wetlands the area has experienced. Wetlands also provide important habitat that directly supports the viability of threatened and endangered species, commercially imported species such as fish, shrimp, and crabs, and the economy through the creation of and support for industries that depend on wetlands such as fishing and hunting guides, bait tackle shops, birding enthusiasts, and ecotourism. Wetlands are a unique yet imperiled ecosystem in the nation, and the coastal areas of Texas have experienced a tremendous loss of this important habitat. Implementing the Galveston Bay Storm Surge Barrier System to reduce financial damages from hurricane storm surge in the study area serves multiple purposes. First, it would help lessen the financial and social impacts that tropical storms and hurricanes can cause by reducing the risk of property damage that displaces residents, shuts down commercial and industrial services, and disrupts livelihoods. If structures avoid or experience less damage because of the draft proposal, families and businesses can rebound much more quickly after a tropical event. Second, time, money, and energy would not be lost to repairing structures damaged by storm surge, relocating to other areas due to displacement from a home or business, or disruptions in community cohesiveness. The draft proposal would also help to ensure that the economy and the region's critical infrastructure would continue to operate after a storm, and the stress and hardship associated with a hurricane storm surge would be decreased. Under the Future Without Project conditions, approximately 250 critical infrastructure sites would be impacted during a 100-year event. With the project in place, only about 95 critical infrastructure sites would be impacted under the same event. Third, each coastal storm risk management measure has a strong benefit-cost ratio, or BCR, with a 2.74 BCR for South Padre and 1.96 BCR for Galveston Bay. The combined BCR for the CSRM measures is 1.96. A BCR over 1 indicates the benefits of the project exceeds the costs, which is a requirement for federal investment. And most critically, if damages from storms were distributed equally across all 50 years of the study, the Galveston Bay Storm Surge Barrier System is anticipated to reduce average annual damages by $2.28 billion per year. That concludes the presentation portion of today's meeting. We will now begin the commenting period. As a reminder, if you have not registered to speak during the meeting today and would like to, you may do so at any time by using the Raise Hand feature located at the bottom of the WebEx participant list, or dialing *3 if you are joining us only by phone. Due to the nature of today's virtual meeting, the formal public commenting portion of today's meeting will be conducted in the following way. First, federal, state, and local elected officials who wish to speak will be called on to do so. Then, anyone else who has indicated a desire to speak will be given the same opportunity. We will then call on each member of the public who has signed up to speak by the name used during the meeting registration or by the last 4 digits of your phone number if you are only joining us by phone. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to make their comments. A countdown timer will be displayed on the meeting broadcast screen for each speaker to indicate the remaining time. As your time ends, please be courteous to the other members of the public who wish to provide comments and quickly wrap up your comments to ensure that everyone who would like to speak has the opportunity to do so. If you do not need the entire time allotted, help us to include everybody by only using the time you need. If you complete your comments in less than 2 minutes, we will restart the clock for the next speaker. Remaining time cannot be reserved or transferred to another speaker. Please keep in mind that we reserve the right to mute your microphone if this instruction is not followed. We ask that you support us in conducting a respectful, orderly, and courteous meeting. We want to be sure we get all your comments recorded, and we need your cooperation to do so. Here are a few ground rules for the meeting today. Since this meeting is being held virtually, we will keep all participant microphones muted to avoid any background noise that may make the presentation difficult to hear. Connor will notify you when your microphone has been unmuted. Please make sure you have also unmuted your phone. When it is your opportunity to speak, please state and spell your first and last name. We will not respond today to the comments submitted. However, all comments made today will be documented and reflected in the development of the final feasibility report and EIS. Just a reminder, you may not defer your time to others. The public meeting will adjourn at 1 p.m. If you have additional comments that you would like to submit beyond what you are able to address during your comment period, please submit them in writing. Speakers will be called on to provide comments in the order in which they have signed up. We will announce upcoming speakers in groups of 5, so you are aware of when you will be called to speak. If you do not wish to provide a comment today, but would like to submit comments to the project team, there are other ways to do so. You have the option to submit comments through mail and email online through the project website. All comments received during the formal commenting period through December 14th, 2020 will carry the same weight as the comments submitted today. You do not have to submit a comment today, and you will be heard just as clearly as those who spoke today. Additional information about submitting comments is provided on the project website.
We will now begin the formal comment period for today's public meeting. Since we do not have any public officials that have signed up to speak today, we will proceed to comments from the public. Our first 5 speakers are Jeffrey Hill, Pamela Couch, Dan Hohenbaum, Jeff Sjostrom, and Harry Craig. We will begin with Jeffrey Hill. Jeffrey, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin comments at this time.
I'm just confused about the details of the West End, particularly the Pirates Beach, Pirates Cove area, because we are both beach and bay. And it seems like, you know, an awful lot of sand to put a full football field width there on the beach side. And it doesn't seem like anything really addresses our concerns from the bay side. So in other words, I guess I'm asking a question that deals with another Ike type storm that surges in from the bay. And there's no part of this plan that I'm seeing that really protects the bay side. So I just have a quick question about that.
Again, this is a formal comment period, so we will not be providing any answers to questions today, but thank you for your comments. We'll move along to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Pamela Couch. Pamela, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Thank you. My name is Pamela Couch, and my question is about the handicapped walkover places that y'all would put over on the beach on Bolivar side. And before Ike, our area, Johnson Road in the Kaplan addition close to Rollover Pass, was handicapped accessible. We had a handicap ramp and a walkover, and it went over the big structure that they had there before Ike, which it took away. Just wondering if y'all were going to replace that, and specifically this neighborhood, because that is one of the reasons that I bought here, is because of the handicapped and walkover, so it was accessible for myself to get over there as my life grows shorter. Appreciate any help with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Pamela. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker is Dan Hohenbaum. Dan, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say really appreciate the effort and time that everyone involved has spent. The plan is very thorough. and covers a tremendous amount of infrastructure that will help us in the future. My concern is that I don't see anything in the plan addressing water inflow and outflow at the San Luis Pass. I'm a resident permanent of Isla del Sol. We're about 4 miles from the San Luis Pass. And I would like to see something addressed with regards to the San Luis Pass and water inflow and outflow, because I'm concerned about a bay surge once water comes in through the pass on a large hurricane. Thank you much again for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker is Jeff Sjostrom. Jeff, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Thank you, Connor. No comments at this point. We'll submit some comments later. Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker is Harry Craig. Harry, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Thank you. I'm a property owner on the Bolivar Peninsula and have had property through Ike there and lost a house. I didn't hear the height of a storm surge that this system will protect that I could understand. Obviously, Ike was 18 plus feet in the area where I was, and I don't know if this will protect that. Those dunes were 12 and 14, I think, the sand dunes. So that's not going to help. I'm concerned about access to the beach as a front row property owner, being able to access the beach. I saw a wooden walk in one of your diagrams, and then I saw maybe it's just a rendering of look like a dirt walk or drive for golf carts or whatever. So that wasn't real plain to me. Maybe the full report will have more. And then I'm really concerned about the maintenance going forward after this is completed. Who's going to pay for that huge amount? Because the Mother Nature is going to do its work on that sand that you brought in. And eventually, I'm not an engineer, that sand is going to go away. And I saw you had budgeted a lot of cubic yards of sand to be brought in every 6 or 7 years. Who is going to pay for that? Is that going to be Galveston County? Is that going to be a combination? The property owners can't hold any more burden on taxes to maintain that. So I appreciate the session today and look forward to more details. Maybe I can find those details as I dig a little further, or you'll make them available as time goes on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next 5 speakers are William Keene, Jason Jacob, Carl LeBlanc, Bob Rehack, and Terry Card. William Keene, your microphone is now unmute and you can begin providing comments at this time. Again, William Keene, your microphone has been unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time. Please remember to also double check the audio on your own device as well. Okay, William, your microphone has been placed back on mute. Move along to our next speaker. Jason Jacob, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Thank you guys for your time today. I'll also submit them in writing.
Okay, thank you. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker is Carl LeBlanc. Carl, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Yes, y'all haven't mentioned anything about Orange County in this presentation. I was wondering if y'all going to have a public comment about the Orange County risk management levy. I noticed on the Corps of Engineers website that it says that Sabine Pass, Galveston Bay, Texas coastal storm risk management restoration is a final report. I know you're not going to answer my questions, but how can I get my questions answered through email? Are y'all going to have any more public comment sections? We sure would like y'all to come to Orange County for the public to be able to ask questions, because we do have concern about residential flooding once the levee is made, because y'all put it in some flooding diagram. There's some square culverts that are being put in through the levee. What is going to keep the storm surge from coming in through the levee? I know somebody said something about some check valves that would close off when the storm surge holds the water come in, it would hold the water out. But who's going to keep those clean from debris? And there's several places that this storm levee is going to cause Orange County to go in the water down the rain event. Believe me. I've been living here all my life. I'm 64 years old, and I know how water drains out of this county, and nothing has been done about it. This storm levee is just going to make rain events even worse. I know you can't comment, but I would appreciate if y'all let me know if we're going to have an Orange County meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Colonel.
Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker is Bob Rehak. Bob, your microphone has been unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
I have several questions / comments. The first one is, where will the sand come from? The second one is, how will a ring system with 14-foot high walls around Galveston Island affect businesses there, especially if the wall is on the landward side of Seawall Boulevard? It seems like it would be kind of hard to get over that to the beaches. The third one is, in some extremely sparsely populated areas, would strategic retreat make more sense than installing a barrier to protect very few people? And the third one, or the fourth one, has to do with the degree of protection. Is it enough? I didn't hear you mention how big of a storm these measures will protect people from. For instance, is it a category 1, a category 2, category 3, 4, 5, that kind of thing? I sure would appreciate answers to those questions in future meetings. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great presentation. I really appreciated it. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker, Terry Card, is no longer in attendance for the meeting, so we'll move along to our next group of speakers. Currently, we only have 3 more speakers who have signed up, so I encourage everyone in attendance, if you have not signed up already, to use the raise hand feature to do so. If you've only joined by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *3. And then, as a reminder to everyone, there will be, in addition to the 6 formal NEPA public meetings, this is our first of those 6. We will be holding informational question and answer sessions. Those will be held on December 2nd and December 4th. The one on December 2nd will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and on December 4th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can find that information, login instructions, and call-in information on the study website. We'll now move on to our next group of speakers. They are Brandy Wagner, Mike Pearson, Jordan Frazier, Cliff Schlabach, and Justin Bauer. We'll begin with Brandy Wagner. Brandy, your microphone is now unmuted, and you can begin your comments at this time.
Hi, I was just curious if we had looked at any, or if we had thought about the usage of gabions at all in this project. The welded wire gabions.
Again, this is not a question and answer session. This is just a formal comment period, so we will not be providing answers
Right.
during this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Mike Pearson. Mike, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
I have a question about the, I think on y'all's presentation, it's referred to as the Corpus Christi Beach, which most of the locals say is just the North Jetty Beach or Boat Ramp Beach. I was curious as to would we have access the boat ramp, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Pilsner boat ramp still? Would there be beach access? Would there be access to the North Jetty? And just curious, some of the presentations y'all have had before showed your diminishing size gate system actually butting up against the Fort Travis seawall. The most current pictures show that not happening, and I didn't know if that was just by accident or if that was by design. And really, I think that's all the questions I have. Looking forward to an answer later on. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is now back on mute. Our next speaker, Jordan Frazier. Looks like Jordan is no longer in attendance with us, so we'll move along to our next speaker, Cliff Schlabach. Your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin comments at this time.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to make a comment. I am Cliff Schlabach with the Texas Coastal Bend Surf Rider Foundation. And I think our main concern is beach access at all along the Texas coast. We're going to be keeping a real close eye to be sure that the Texas Open Beaches Act is being followed for as beach access for the public goes. And some of our other concerns are the double dune system that's going to be used along Bolivar and along Galveston Island, and where the sand supply is going to come from. That's a lot of sand, and it's going to take a lot of sand to maintain that. And just, have some questions about where all of that sand is going to come from. So that's our main concerns for now. I will be keeping up with this project as it goes along and reporting to our surf rider chapters here in Texas, all 5 of them. And we'll have future comments. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is placed back on mute. Our next speaker is Justin Bowyer. Justin, your microphone is now unmuted and you can begin your comments at this time.
Good afternoon. This is Justin Bauer. I first want to thank you very much for this very accessible and detailed presentation. We appreciate the effort to get out to our communities and make what is obviously a very large and ambitious project easily accessible. We do thank you very much for the amount of work and effort that has been put into this project and for the foresight in dealing with some of the potential complications. One thing is just a recommendation, and realizing this is potentially outside the scope of your work and your study effort, but there are still, even as much as things have started to coalesce around this effort, being large scale, government backed, greatest potential for future funding, there are other ideas and efforts out there, things like the Bay Park plan. It might be helpful in making the case, even beyond the very beneficial BCR of this project, to even at a high level do a comparison, whether it's on cost or effectiveness or potential levels of protection, to things like the Bay Park plan or other efforts to potentially answer some of the questions that have been brought up in this session and potentially others in terms of, is protection on Bolivar as warranted as on Galveston? Obviously, I'm not making that suggestion, but since that has come up and that sort of comparative question is being asked, our recommendation would simply be, anything you could do to show how this idea potentially interacts with other efforts or potentially is superior or is the right recommendation over other efforts would be greatly appreciated to help the general public make a very clear and transparent ability to support or otherwise this project. So thank you all very much. We appreciate your effort and we look forward to hearing more.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone is now back on mute. At this time, we only have one more speaker who has registered. So again, I encourage everyone, if you have not already signed up to speak, please use the raise hand or the *3 function on the phone to go ahead and sign up if you would still like to provide a comment. We do have plenty of time allotted left in this meeting this morning. Now I'll move along to that last speaker that is registered. They are a call-in user with the first 6 digits 713924. I will now unmute your line, and if you could please provide us your first and last name before your comment. Your microphone has now been
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Sean Palmer, and I'm calling in. I have comments about that I'd like to see more environmental impact in the study as far as shoreline protection goes. We've had several projects where gabion seawalls were implemented to protect the fisheries and the shorelines, as well as for breakwater protection. And I'd like to see implementation of that. Now, I know as far as gabions go, there's been concern about, the wire deteriorating, but with our stainless steel wires, these gabion systems are very effective at protecting shorelines and the environmental impact to the area. So I'd like to see more of that implemented into the plan if I could. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Your microphone has now been placed back on mute. At this time, we do not have any more registered speakers. So again, I encourage anyone, if you'd like to sign up, please do so now. In the meantime, just to reiterate again, we will have 5 more of these formal NEPA public meetings. One will be again today from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can find that information on the study website. Also on December 3rd at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. respectively, and then again on December 8th at the same times. Again, all that information can be found on the study website. In addition to those sessions, there will be 2 more informational Q&A sessions, one on December 2nd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and again on December 4th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Once again, all of that information, access information, call-in information can be found on the study website, as well as just additional information about the study for any of folks who have questions or are curious about any of the information posted there. At this time, we still do not have any more registered speakers. So we have gone through all the commenters who have signed up. At this time, the formal commenting period has ended. All statements placed in the record will be given consideration. It should be noted that comments can be submitted at any time during the NEPA process, but only those submitted during this and the previous formal review and comment periods will be included in the summary reports and considered in the development of the final proposal. If there are no more speakers who wish to comment, I thank you for your participation today and the interest that you have shown in the Coastal Texas study. This public meeting is now adjourned.